Assalamu alaikum. This is the Women's Mosque of America 2026 Qur'an Literacy Program, discussion number 1. And we are so happy to have you here. I'm just going to open up with Al-Fatiha. If you want to recite along with me, please join in. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Alhamdulillah, so good to have everyone here. I am going to turn you over to our amazing facilitator, Nadia Shaiq. You have the floor.
Wonderful. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. My name is Nadia Shaiq. I'm honored to be a facilitator for the Qur'an Literacy Program. This is our first Qur'an Literacy Program discussion of 2026. We've had a wonderful outpouring of interest in the program, but also of, as you're interested, many of you have sent either emails or notes on the Discord of how much you're enjoying the process. So that is wonderful to hear. If we could start just by sharing, we'll do a quick rip around, just share your name and where you're calling from. So I'm going to go in the order it is in my screen, but we will start with myself. I'm Nadia Shaiq. I'm calling from Los Angeles, and I'll go to Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna Kapati, and I am calling from Oceanside, or North San Diego, California.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Dr. Nairia. I'm calling from Carson, California.
Assalamu alaikum, Candace from Rochester, New York.
Yes, well, my name is Jean, and I'm calling from Whidbey Island, which is near Seattle, Washington, USA.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm calling from Pasadena, California.
Assalamu alaikum, Zan. I'm in Islamabad, Pakistan today, but usually I'm from Minnesota.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm calling from Manteca today, but normally I'm in the Bay Area.
Hello, I'm Zara. I'm from Eastvale, California.
Hi, assalamu alaikum. I'm Sanya. I'm calling from Lake Forest, California.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm joining y'all from Philly, so it's also getting late over here.
Did you ever meet your fellow Philly person?
Yeah, but inshallah.
Kanwal.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Calling from South Florida.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm calling from Inland Empire, California.
Great. Stephanie?
Assalamu alaikum. I go by Sophia, and I'm calling from Honolulu.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Farah, and I'm calling from Bowie, Maryland, just outside of DC.
Assalamu alaikum. My name's Rabia, and I'm calling in from Orange County, California.
Okay. Moina, or Ami, as I call her.
Moina is fine, Nadia. Assalamu alaikum. I'm calling from LA. I'm from the Bay Area.
I'm Sakina. I'm calling from Los Angeles.
I'm Rakiatu. I'm calling from Los Angeles.
My name is Aisha, and I'm calling in from Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is on Massachusetts and Wampanoag Indigenous land.
Okay, my name is Charmaine Holland, and I'm calling from Huntington Beach, California.
Awesome. Thank you. And the question for today, which I'm going to put in the chat, is what is one food that brings back a pleasant memory for you or a happy memory? So before we go, I'm going to give you a little bit of time to think. As we share out, actually, this was fun community building type of activity, but also rooted in the Quran. So I want to share with you all a verse. I'm sure some of you may have heard it before. And I'm pulling this up from Islam Awakened, which is a site that pulls all major translations of the Quran. This is from Surah Al-Hujurat, Surah 49, Ayah 13, in Muhammad Asad's translation, O men, or as you can see under Arbery's translation, O mankind. Oh, gosh. Behold, We have created you all out of a male and a female and have made you into nations and tribes so that you might come to know one another. Verily, the noblest of you in the sight of God is the one who is most deeply conscious of God. Behold, God is all-knowing, all-aware. So when we think about getting to know each other and how we are all different and come from different places, eat different foods, that is all part of the decree of diversity that God has given, so that we can get to know each other, not so that we can stay apart. So thank you for sharing in that Quran-inspired activity. So what I'd like to do next is actually dive into, just to repeat for a few folks, welcome to anybody who joined. I'm curious to hear, what are your initial impressions or thoughts of reading the Quran, the Muhammad Asad version, translation of the Quran in English? So just to share initial thoughts, things that come to mind. Many of us are, about half of us are continuing from last year, about half of us are new. So it'll be really nice to kind of get that perspective. So the question on the table that I'll put in the chat again is just, what are your initial thoughts in your first few weeks of reading? It's funny, the 2 years ago, we would do some of these Qur'an Literacy Program sessions in person. And Hasna, who's the founder of the Women's Mosque and passed about a year ago now, asked me to help her with setup. So we were getting ready, it was almost time, and we were having some major technical difficulties. And she said, let's break for Usr. I had, a moment of panic saying, we got to get this ready, people are going to come. And she turned to me and she said, it's amazing how every time we set up something, there's always some moment of panic or some crisis, but alhamdulillah, it gets figured out. And she went and she prayed Usr completely in peace of mind, and we started just fine. So thank you, Dr. Nayawiya, for suggesting we take that break for Maghrib, for places that it went in, and just a reminder to ourselves that, Allah is the one taking care of us. So. All right. So the question on the table is, what are your first impressions reading the Quran for yourself in English? So I'm going to open it up and then we're going to come back to Sister Aisha. She was sharing some pieces, but let me open it up first. Anybody else? What are some initial impressions reading the Quran for yourself in English?
I would say my first impression is that it's always an attempt. So that would be something to reflect on, is just being aware that, as I was reading in the forward that understanding the context of when it was written and the Arabic language and classical Arabic, there's meaning to the person chosen based on how much they understand it. So I would say knowing that it's an attempt and that translation isn't even, I don't know if translation is even the correct word to call it a translation.
Yeah. And when you say knowing it's an attempt, are you referring to the translation as an attempt?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it makes sense. And that's when we go on to Islam Awakened, and I know we had a chance to do that with Surah Fatiha in the first week. It is so amazing to see all the different words in English that can be used to describe this term in Arabic, and it's not about the language, because even the Arabic term has so many. Hasna used to say that the Quran is kind of like a Rorschach test. Those tests are the ink blots. And what you see is kind of dependent on where you are at the time, where you are in your life, where you are in time and history, and that's what you kind of read into it. So it's so interesting to see interpretations of the Word of God and how those come together. So thank you, Candace, for sharing that. Let's go to Jean, and then Aisha, I'm going to come back to you. Go ahead, Jean.
Oh, sure. I really appreciate this translation because of the transliteration, Arabic, English, and footnotes. So it feels like an academic approach in a way, which I appreciate, and it's familiar to me, that lens. In the past, I've tried reading the Clear Quran, which I also like, But the footnotes really helped me this time. So I would read the first chapter. It's only seven verses, and think, yes, I've got this, and then go to the second one. I'm like, oh, that's a lot. So I would just like randomly flip through the book and glean from it what I could here and there. But I'm really following along nicely because of the footnotes. So I appreciate it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you
Understanding
said
it more.
absolutely, when you said you would read the first one and then you go in the second one and be like, oh, that's a lot. Are you referring to prior attempts at trying to read it?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
with my copy of the Clear Quran. I do also agree that the physical copy makes a huge difference. I first got the PDF of the message of the Quran, and it was just hard to read on my computer. I'm on my computer all day. I really needed a physical book, so I have my space now, and I just block out time and look at the pages, so it's much more easy to understand. But, yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
Awesome. Aisha, I'm going to go back to you so now you can share within the discussion, and then I'll go to Nida and then Rokiatu afterwards. Go ahead, Aisha.
I always have a sense whenever I read the Quran, particularly in English because it's the language that I understand. I always have a sense of grandeur, and I always have a sense of both like peace, but also like what mistakes did I make in life that like God disapproved of? I'm like, oh, basically I did the reading for the month like a few hours before the session to like catch up. And I was like, okay, like what are the times that like I was ungrateful, or like what were the times that I didn't treat people right or something? And like I'm just thinking about what I've done in my life that's fallen short is always kind of the thing that's like in the back of my mind. So that's kind of always that's kind of always how I feel whenever I read it, I guess.
Mm. And it's so interesting to, as we go on this journey together this year, for you to keep paying attention to, because you say you keep coming back to that feeling of where have I fallen short. I'm curious as you go through and reading if you notice you're coming back to a different feeling or the same feeling as you go later on in the year. You know what I mean? Because and thinking through where maybe does that feeling come from? Is it something that's based in the Quran, or is it something based in something else someone has told you? Do you have any sense of that right now?
I mean, there are times that like I feel really affirmed, like when I see certain verses, and I'm like, oh, like I did that thing. But then there's also like whenever I feel too affirmed, I'm like, oh, but there's probably things I've done wrong too, so I can't like I don't want to get too arrogant either. So it's like a balance of like of affirmation of certain things I've done in my life, but also like, okay, I know that there are definitely things that I can work on and improve on too.
Thank you. Let's go to Nida, and feel free if you have something to add, just put your virtual hand up so that I'm keeping kind of track. Nida, go ahead.
So I wanted to say, like, one of the reasons why I started reading the Quran in English was when I was in law school. I realized everything is so dense in the legal material that I was studying, and I was never a bright student. I was majority of middle school, high school, I was failing, and my parents were praying I'd make it through undergrad. So as I grew up, I realized it's not so much about knowing all of it, as much as just the attempt that was being mentioned earlier. Like, I think, subhanAllah, like Allah really does guide you with what you need to know at the time you need to know. And there's times where the material gets so dense that your brain can't comprehend. But if you just push through it, it kind of starts piecing together eventually. Especially when you're supposed to grasp something specific in particular out of that dense material, it'll come to you. But you have to push yourself. And the other thing I really noticed, and I'm starting to enjoy, is understanding how much unity is celebrated throughout the Quran, especially because, in the world that we live in today, it's far more celebrated to bring us apart and have us standing against each other's, especially, the main religions like Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and to see it reiterate constantly that we are one. And if we're constantly, it's just the message is the same: be a good person, follow the guidelines, believe in the day of judgment, believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being the only one. And that message is far more removed from the Western media than what is actually in the Quran. So it's really something I'm enjoying reading in the Quran right now.
And you're describing such a sense of faith in God when you say it will come. Just you make the effort and it will come is a beautiful way to express faith in God and patience in God. As a educator, I'm itching to reframe a little bit your statement of I wasn't a bright student to maybe the structures around you did not support you the way you needed to be. One thing to think about.
Wow.
Let's go to Rokiatu, and then I'm going to go to Charmaine after that.
Yeah, that was a great point, Nida. Just to build on to that before I go into the initial impressions, I'm taking a Sirah of the Prophet class, and we ended class today with the conversation about the curse of Ham. And so just understanding the ways that some lineages have been prioritized over others and used in a way to say that, those of Ham, those of Black origin, those of African origin are cursed in some way, and how all of that is dispelled through the messages of the Quran, right? So I'm really glad that Nida brought it back to that unity, because the superiority or inferiority really disappears when you listen to it, when you think about it in terms of hearts, minds, and souls. Like, none of those things have colors, none of those things have like ethnic attributes. And so it really strips away all the things that we claim to need in order to differentiate ourselves, and takes us to like the core of who we are, our lub, like our inner person. And so, I mean, just speaking about how it has touched me in English, I think reading about it in Arabic and studying it in Islamic school, I had a big chest and feeling like I could do the translations perfectly. I could speak the Arabic perfectly. When my teacher would ask me to say a certain verse, I would say it perfectly. And I felt a lot of pride in my chest about being able to speak Arabic very well when I recited. And then as a young woman now studying it a little bit deeper, without my nafs, without like all the things that I need in order to tell me that I'm worthy, is definitely touching my heart a lot closer to read it in English and understand like every single word has meaning. And I'm not necessarily reading Quran now begging for answers. I used to open the Quran like, please tell me how to deal with this situation, like begging for answers and begging for quick fixes. But alhamdulillah, like reading it in English in such a slow way with the footnotes, with deep questioning, has really touched my soul a lot more, and helped me understand like if it took 23 years to reveal, then what is hidden in me will be revealed through this process as well, inshallah. So I don't have to rush through getting answers, because this is how Allah intended for me to understand it. God willing.
Wow, Rukiatu, that was beautiful, and it's actually connecting. I'm looking at Paula put something in the chat that says it's different reading with intention, and taking our time. And the program was built specifically to take that first week just one verse a day. You reminded me of myself in the sense of when a lot of times in trying to prove worthiness, and then the Quran talks a lot about what makes someone worthy versus not worthy, but in whatever in my head of worthiness was I am going to be the best at this. And I'm reading the Quran, I am reading that whole thing during the month of Ramadan. And then it's like, well, one, that never happens. I start out strong and I fall off. Paula, you're laughing. You know what I'm talking about. Or if I do, I'm not any of a different person after it than I was before. So what's the point? What a beautiful thing to share about words that have meaning. And if it took 23 years, and reading it, all of us reading it right now in 2026 have to be in the point where we are. However many years old we've been on this earth, that's what we needed to do to understand the Quran in the way we need to right now. Let's go to Charmaine.
Assalamu alaikum. Everybody message was so beautiful, but for me, it's the opposite because I only know English. I mean, I do know it in Arabic now, after 25 years of coming to El Islam, but it's like a Fatiha, it's like for me, listening and reading is almost as if it's the entire Quran. You know, after so many years, we say it over and over in the prayers. It allowed me to be able to understand a little bit more deeper of what it means in the Arabic. I know I'm turning the opposite direction now, but to get the full essence of what it truly means word by word, it is so powerful. And so that's what I'm looking to learn in this here session with the English and the Arabic kind of together as I go along with it. So that's my reflection of the Fatiha as I continue to learn and ask God for guidance and, know that He is guiding you on the right path, regardless, whatever you're going through, whatever test He's putting you through, He's teaching you how to reach your greatness by you just putting your trust in guiding Him. So thank you for allowing me to share.
What a beautiful reflection. And I think you're illustrating the purpose of Qur'an Literacy Program, that we are all coming from different perspectives. There's some of us that may be coming having known the Arabic and now are layering on with the English. There's others who are coming having known the English and then layering on with the Arabic. And how powerful for us to come together and talk and see what each of those different perspectives are bringing forth, because we both have something to learn. And both, but there are many different paths on that, getting to what that is. So it's not one or the other. Thank you for sharing. Let's go to Moina.
So, growing up in Pakistan, the culture was the Quran was only read in Arabic, and that's it. You read it in Arabic and you close it and you put it away. So, of course, reading the meanings, we understand that it is sent for our guidance, for us to seek guidance. How can we read it in a language where we don't know what we are reading? So, Alhamdulillah, this opportunity has come along that I'm able to join and read and learn. And it's just so beautiful being with all of you here and being in a community. I'm just getting emotional, sorry. It's very important to hear all of the perspectives, and it brings you, grounds you, and helps you understand that you're here for so many different reasons. There are so many different ways to understand and grasp and implement it. Yesterday, the khutbah was on, it was a beautiful khutbah, and he was saying that we all want to be seen. All human beings inherently want to be seen. And when you read the Quran, you feel that you are being seen by your Allah. He is the creator. He is seeing you. He's seeing your intentions, that you are trying to learn. You are trying to understand what He has sent you. So it's just a beautiful, beautiful feeling. Thank you.
You have another beautiful reflection and feeling that emotion in that. I think that illustrates for so many of us, we are coming in with some kind of cultural schema around the Quran. And all sorts of different cultural schema from different ways we grew up or didn't grow up, or things we may have encountered in the last few years. And a lot of the work we'll be doing this year together is it's called Decolonizing our mind, and decolonizing the way we thought we knew how things were supposed to be. But then this year we're actually going to turn to God's words and say, well, what does God say about that? Not what does someone else say about that. In the chat, Shahrat brings up a huge point that I think is super important to dive into, and that's the idea of guilt. So Shahrat, if you don't mind, if I read what you put in the chat, you said, I've only been reading the transliteration of the Quran in English because learning Arabic has been so challenging, and I have felt so much guilt for this, and guilt that I am behind on my journey. And I see some flowers, and I see some hugs and other emojis there. Did you want to expand on that piece a little bit? I'm a little curious.
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, so I just grew up in a household where I did actually have a person come to the house to teach me Arabic, but I could never, I don't know, it was just incomplete. I left incomplete because it was so challenging learning because I speak Bengali and then I also have English, and then now I'm trying to learn Arabic, and I just ended up not being able to finish. But it was not until I became an adult and I learned that there's a transliteration of the Quran that I can read, and it just everything made sense to me. What I was being told, what I was learning, it just made more sense because it was in a language where I can understand the stories, the stories of our prophet, the journey, the messages. I can actually understand it because it was in a language I can understand. But there's always this guilt because I've heard people say Arabic is the language that you should learn it because it was the language that our prophet learned, spoke in, and it's like the preferred, that you know it in English, that's fine, but you should learn it in Arabic because that's better. And then you get more rewards, like it's better. You get more rewards if you know it in English. And so I always felt like, oh, I'm not going to get the reward. And then people start making you feel guilty, that situation where you're like, you're not good enough because you don't know it, in the language. And then there's so much guilt for that. And I'm 50 now, but I'm so behind in my journey. And there's guilt for that because I just felt like I went astray because I was so frustrated. That guilt held me for a long time. But now I'm like, no, I've got to do better for me and not let that kind of stuff.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And by the way, as we talk through, the way I run these discussions is feel free if you'd like to respond to what someone said, because I know I have an order of questioning, but I also want to give people a chance to respond. So before I speak, did anyone want to respond directly to Shahrat?
Yes.
Go for it, Sherman.
I wanted to say there's no guilt. Timing is everything. I was the same way. I said, well, you know what? I can't speak to everybody in English. I mean, in Arabic. So I pulled back, right? And so now I regret because now everybody is speaking it. But alhamdulillah, Allah will make you when it's his time. I mean, when it's your time, he will make it easy when you catch up. So don't even put that pressure on you. Allah knows your heart and your attention. That's all I want to say. Okay.
Thank you. Anyway, Samira, is yours in response or something different?
I would say it's in the same vein. It's not a direct response, but like I guess it's similar.
Go for it.
Meditation. When she was saying that she felt guilty in her journey because she didn't know Arabic. When I was, younger and I guess in like middle school, high school, and then like my family's Muslim, but like we didn't really have the same big community that my parents grew up with as far as like Islamic community, right? So I knew it was something I identified with, but I also felt like a little bit remote from it. And the fact that there was so much primacy or emphasis on Arabic being the correct way or like the correct language to learn and different things like that felt like a barrier to me. So it didn't really make me feel guilty because I didn't necessarily have the full love for it yet. It actually made me feel resentful, if I'm honest. And I'm like, well, I'm not Arab, and it something that helped me was a time when my cousin sat me down. He was like, let's say you meet someone and they are like just an amazing person. They treat you with honor and like, they get along with all the people that you love and all these different things. And you know that they love you and that there's a language barrier. If you love this person, would you not make an attempt to learn their language, And so it's like, it's just something about things not being lost in translation. So it's like approach it from where you are, start where you are. But if you really love, then you're gonna put in an effort because like your enthusiasm is to do that. You know what I mean? And I just love the response that Sister Charmaine had a moment ago because you could just feel her enthusiasm, and that's where it should come from. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much. Guilt is going to be a major theme that we touch on this year, and that is also part of decolonizing. Because what I'll say is guilt is a weapon of a colonizer to keep people in their place. I'm going to say that again. There could be theses written on guilt, but but for right now, guilt serves a couple purposes. Sometimes it gets us to get up and get moving and get things done. Others times it causes us to paralyze and sit back and say, I just can't. So really, as we're thinking through what is this feeling doing for me and doing to me, and is that something I want or not? And so we're going to start separating again. And then what is that? What is it that what God says about it, and what is it that people are saying about it? And one of the things I know for people who are in this program the last couple of years, as they got through the end of the year, we're sharing, well, now I read everything written that God says in the Quran. What you're telling me, I don't remember it there. How powerful. And then the last thing I'll say before I go back to Paula is there's some timing words you used. I feel behind on my journey. And about going astray on a journey. Keep in mind, even the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ didn't get revelation till he was 40 years old. Time is very relative to where we have to be at a certain place that God knows that we need to be in order to get different things. Even in this program is not about finishing the Quran. As much as it might seem like it, it's not about finishing. It's about the journey we go through. So even if we just read a few verses, that's a few more verses than we read before. And I love how somebody said earlier, it was revealed over 23 years, because each time it was revealed, the Sahaba would work on, how do I live that? And I'm going to live that one verse before I get to the next verse, right? So it's not about quantity. It's not about all these other markers that society puts on us to mean, yes, you have succeeded. Paula, go ahead.
This time reading the Quran, it's I took my Shahada at like 17, and I was going to be this super Muslim. You couldn't tell me anything. And then, it might have had to do with the boy, maybe or maybe not. That's not the point. I'm here now. But, reading the Quran was always, it just felt like this huge task, because the ones that I read were so ornate, with the gold foil on the side. And then the paper, if you sneeze, the paper's going to tear. And, and it's like the English is on one side, and that you're going to the hot place because you're not reading it in Arabic. So it's one thing, how everyone said, you feel like you're supposed to, it's one of the languages that's been unchanged, for thousands of years. That's what we should be speaking. That's what we should know. That's where we should be getting the true word of God. But this version makes it so much less intimidating. I went down because I live in Southern California. I went and picked up my Quran, and this thing weighs 47 pounds. I don't care what anyone tells me. I don't care what anyone tells me. And I opted to get the version where it comes in smaller books. So, it just feels more accessible. And the way that it's written, and I can sound out these words because I'm that nerdy kid who looks in the dictionary to find out how you're supposed to pronounce things. But it's like, I feel like I have more agency. I feel like a barrier has been removed for me of in like, no one made me associated with, I myself associated reading the Quran with like, I have to do my wudu, and now I have to do this, and I can't have these thoughts, and oh, I sneezed, wait a minute, can I still continue to read? But this program makes like already, I just appreciate the vibe, the openness, the safe space. I appreciate that. But it's reading with intention this time. I feel like I'm getting so much more out of it because I have all this guidance to help me. If I want to do all of the activities, I can. I don't have to, but I can, and I can deepen my understanding. And that is the thing that I appreciate like just so much.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Dr. Farah put something in the chat that I'd love you to expand on. When we talk about, oftentimes in this colonized mindset, that if we only knew Arabic, if we were only part of that community, we would somehow read the Quran and everything would be better in our lives. Dr. Farah, you put in the chat, even Arabic speakers do not understand the Quran. Quran is a frequency. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I put that because I'm a third generation American Muslim, and we were kind of forced to take Arabic classes as children and never really quite mastered it. But I always noticed that we were taught this standard Arabic, and it wasn't very useful for reading the Quran. And then my ex-husband, I married an Egyptian, and that was my first exposure to all these people speaking Arabic, but saying, but we don't understand the Quran. Even though we speak Arabic, we don't know that language. That is a different language than is spoken. And so that was very enlightening. And then as I spoke to other native Arabic speakers from other countries, they all say the same thing. Now, having said that, then when I started studying more just about the Quran and how it affects us physiologically and psychologically, it really is it's a frequency that on a couple of levels. It's a frequency on the actual sound vibrations that it causes in our bodies, like in the Arabic. So the Arabic, Allah says that the Quran is a healing, and that's like quite literally the way the tones when you pronounce it correctly, they vibrate on organs and parts of our bodies that heal. But then so that's one little level, but it's so many levels. And then there are other levels with the understanding piece of it. So I always think about, I can't remember which verse, but, Allah gives understanding to whom he will, so you and I can read the same thing. I will understand it. You will not. You will understand it. I will not, because it's about what frequency you're already on. Are you approaching it with openness? Are you approaching it really wanting to understand? Are you ready to understand that thing in a certain way? Because I think about the story of Khidr in the Quran, and the boy was not ready to learn. He wasn't ready for what he asked for, so he didn't get it. He didn't get the information. So, so anyway, all of that was swirling through my head when I wrote that comment.
Thank you so much. And that going back to that holistic piece, it can't be all one or all the other. We have to be reading with understanding and listening. I think back to the resources part that Paula put in her chat. And now I could never do this before, but now you can pull on YouTube and I can listen and I can hear the frequencies, even if I can or can't say it myself. But what an amazing resource there. Let's go to Nida to close us out, and then I'm going to tie this into our next topic. Go ahead, Nida.
I just piggybacking off of, how sometimes practice itself is so difficult, like the gold foil pages and the perfect, you don't want to tear the pages apart. So in that regard, I also had a question regarding the wudu and the period. Like, can we read the Quran without doing the wudu or being on your period? And then a follow-up question I had, just out of curiosity, I know like at the end of this program, we are supposed to graduate. And I was just curious what that means. Like, what are we graduating with? Do we say that we are a scholar of a topic? Can we like talk about this, what we're studying here? Like, just so I'm careful with how I proceed.
What a great question. So in terms of the program, like I said, when the Qur'an Literacy Program began 3 years ago now, it was originally envisioned as a 1-year Quran reading program that you would start. You would read what was thought to be 10 minutes a day, and at the end of the year, you would have finished it. And then the next group kind of crops up after that. The intentionality is to build a Quran literate society and to spark a worldwide Islamic Renaissance, really, full of people who have fully read the Quran. That is when you listen to, within the orientation, if you listen to, we talk about the mission and vision Hasna put in, that is what she talked about. As we went through the first year, we realized one, it wasn't just 10 minutes a day to get the reading, and two, for a lot of people, reading at that pace, which was about 20 minutes a day, is not possible with everything else. And so some people were not able to, were being scared away from the program because they couldn't do that. Right. So that's why we now have our different 4 tracks, 1 year, 2 year, 4 year, 7 year tracks, where you can read every day for 20 minutes. You can read every other day for 20 minutes, twice a week for 20 minutes, or once a week for 20 minutes. One of the big conversations we had last year is that piece about it's not an endpoint. Just even our goal is not just to get to the end, because the goal is in the journey and in the implementation. And second, once we get to the end, it really isn't an end, because then we just start reading again and it cycles through our life. So I hope that answers. In terms of a wudu in period, yes, you can read the English part of the Quran in any state. The Arabic, there's some different opinions on that, but most opinions are you can read portions of the Arabic in that as well. Maybe not a full-fledged reading of the whole Quran. But I think Fatima put a really nice link. I'll actually say it in case somebody is listening to the recording. Let's see, Seekers Hub as some other place you could research a little more. So speaking of this idea of a journey, I didn't get to finish in the orientation all of what Hasna put into her orientation. So if it's okay with you, I wanted to take you to a 5-minute clip from Hasna, where she speaks specifically about the Quran as an experiential lived journey. And the funny thing is, I had this in my agenda as things to talk about, not even imagining the conversation would go there. And somehow the conversation just organically went there. So she's going to talk about that. She's going to talk about the idea of abrogation, which she's going to define and talk a little bit about. So let's listen to these 5 minutes together, and then we'll, for the last few minutes of class, in breakout rooms, just share a little bit about your reactions to what you hear her say. There's a reason we do the Muhammad Asad version of the Quran, and Dr. Farah talked about the language of the Quran with what's called Fusha Arabic or classical Arabic. It's important to understand Arabic at the time the Quran was revealed, because what that same Arabic word might mean today is different, because it's based on 21st century. So Muhammad Asad actually lived and studied among Bedouin Arabs. And so he brings a lot of context into the Bedouin Arabic that is in the Quran. She's going to talk particularly about why the footnotes are so important to read.
Text to what was going on during the Prophet's time when the verses were revealed. They're also extremely important because he models something that we need to resurrect. So he models the Islamic tradition of beautiful disagreement. So, as I mentioned, there were tens of thousands of Islamic scholars lost to history due to several different issues, including colonialism. And what he does so beautifully is in his footnotes, he will say, this scholar believes this about this verse. This other scholar believes this. I disagree with them, and I believe this because X, Y, Z. So even though we're not, of course, going to get all, the full 1,400 years of scholarship, which would be an insane feat for 1 year, we are getting a great sampling, and even better than that, we're getting a great sampling of how to engage with Islam and how to engage with the Quran, how to engage with each other when we share our perspectives with one another. So that's the real gem for me. Also, the thing that I prize and I value most about his perspective is his holistic perspective. So he takes the Quran in whole. He doesn't take things out of context. And on the issue of abrogation, this is something, we are a middle ground pluralistic organization, but this is something that I personally have a very firm stance on. Abrogation, for those of you who aren't familiar, is the concept that certain verses in the Quran were canceled out when new verses were revealed. So, for example, there were verses that were revealed that said, "Don't come to the prayer drunk." Right? This is during the time when Muslims were, the Quran was revealed over 23 years. The first 12, 13 years were more general instructions. And then after year 12, 13, that's when the formal traditions and rites like prayer, the formal prayer, were prescribed to the community. So it wasn't all together all at once. But it was revealed in stages. So don't come to the prayer drunk. And then in a later verse, it says, don't drink, right? So people who believe or advocate for abrogation say that the later verses cancel out the beginning verses. Muhammad Asad's concept, or the way that he approaches the concept of abrogation, is much more holistic, and he is able to take um, uh, take things in view of the greater whole. So he will cross-compare verses throughout the Quran with each other to come to more holistic solutions. And in my opinion, I think that a lot of problems within the Muslim community, and wherever there is violence in Muslim lands, or at the hands of Muslims, is because people are taking verses out of context, using abrogation as a tool to condone the things that they're doing that go against the holistic message of the Quran. And same when it comes to the way that Muslim women are sometimes mistreated. It's because people are not taking a look at the holistic message of the Quran, evaluating all of the verses together in terms of the overall message. So to me, his approach is extremely important, and it is the approach that we endorse as a mosque. Okay. And just a note also on the Quran is that I think one thing that we need to bring back, when I was talking about how we can sometimes take this disembodied approach to the Quran, where we look at it as a theory or as an idea. One thing that will be important for us to keep in mind is that it is a book that is meant to be lived. So I'm going to make up an example right now. So say that I tell you, hey, you can go into that next room that has that's filled to the brim with gold if you can find the key. And you might think, oh wow, she said I can have all that gold. She said I can go to that room. But you ignore the fact that I said, if you find the key. And what I know is that key doesn't exist. And what I know is that by sending you on the search to look for that key, you will find the treasures that already exist in your own room. Right? So this is what I mean by the Quran is an experiential book that needs to be lived. Sometimes you might see verses, like for the most part, the verses that are confusing or misunderstood can be clarified with some historical context. Sometimes there are verses that might seem shocking to the senses if you just look at it from a distance. But if you actually psychologically walk yourselves through each step, step by step, you will find out, spoiler alert, you will find out that God is actually leading you on an emotional journey to show you how important something is before constricting it. And I'm not going to give it away, but it applies to a few different issues that have been misinterpreted. So again, this holistic approach to the Quran, this lived, embodied approach, not a distant, disconnected, snap judgment, skimming, or oh, it says that. It's very clear. It's really important that we calm ourselves down to be present and open our hearts to be trusting enough, trusting God, that we won't be misled by this book. This is here as a mercy for humankind. It's here as a guidance, and it's here to help us and to be a healing, a source of nourishment and peace. So just keep that in mind.
All right. So Do you see what I mean? I didn't even know our conversation was going to go here, and yet Hasna talked about this idea of the lived experience of the Quran, and last year. So may Allah bless her with the highest level of Jannah, and let this be her sadaqah jariyah. We don't have time. I wanted time to discuss, but where our hour and a half together is coming to an end. But never fear. Next month, the first Sunday of the month in March, we're going to get back together. I hope today's session helped inspire us.
I just wanted to say the thing that really stood out for me in Hasna's video was that being able to calm down enough. That is the key to this program, because we come here with a lot of baggage. You see that we come in with cultural baggage, we come in with intellectual baggage, we come in with all kinds of baggage. And to kind of release all of that and just listen and feel it and then respond and engage it, that is the beauty of this program. And when you finish with that, that's a type of a graduation that you're going to feel like nothing else you've experienced. So just hang in there with us. Inshallah, we'll all get there, and we'll all get there together as a community. So I'm going to close out with أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. We'll see you all next month, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.